Barbatos was running through hell's dim streets as he tried to escape his punishment. He had shown compassion to a mortal soul, had mended the wounds instead of torturing it for its past sins. And they knew. Hell always knew. Barbatos knew it was futile to run, yet he could not stop his desperate attempt. His run ended when Lucifer landed in front of him, cutting him off. The demon stopped at once, falling to his knees from the dread and exhaustion. His king only stared him down with cold golden eyes, causing him to avoid his own. Behind them, Cain and a small troop of demons were following. "Barbatos!" Cain called out, the voice full of disdain and glee. The demon felt the tainted soul approach. He tried to suppress a shudder when he looked up at his king. Hot fires burned behind Lucifer's eyes. The black wings were still spread. "I beg your forgiveness, my king," he started, his tone firm despite his turmoil. "Causing pain. It lies not in my blood. Shouldn't we have compassion towards those humans?" "Compassion," Cain spat from behind. "There is no compassion for humanity," Lucifer finally spoke. "Forgiveness only resides in heaven, the very place you chose to defy when you followed me. I may have fallen, but I am still an angel." The defiant statement was answered by Cain, who took Barbatos' right wing. "You mean that lump of flesh? It doesn't make you an angel." Another pair of hands took his left wing. "We should cut them off, my lord. That should be his punishment." Barbatos saw uncertainty in his king's eyes for a very short moment, but Lucifer did not waver openly, and instead drew his sword. The heavy boot sounded as the fallen archangel walked behind the rebellious demon. Barbatos tried to brace himself for the agony, but the pain when his wings were severed was too intense to be quiet. Cain smiled wickedly when Barbatos cried in anguish and grief. Blood stained the ground, soaked his tunic and trousers. Lucifer cleaned his blade with one motion and sheathed it. The demon sank to the ground as weakness overcame him. "Don't be foolish again," his king commanded right next to his ear in a strangely soft voice, and vanished. Cain and his troop took a moment to gloat and taunt. Then they too went back to their tasks, leaving Barbatos lying in his own blood. A soft tugging on his soul let him snap out of his pain and grief. Barbatos wanted to ignore it, wanted to keep lying right there. He had dragged himself into a dark back alley. His wings he had left behind. They were gone. Nothing would ever change that. The tugging grew stronger, more violent. It was then when the demon realized it wasn't an open summoning. Someone called for him alone. Barbatos stopped resisting and followed the magical doorway to the mortal plane. In a moment he found himself standing in a dimly lit room of a small and seemingly poor household, but his strength quickly gave out and he fell to one knee again. "Are you Barbatos?" The voice of a young man spoke from the shadows. Barbatos would have seen him usually, but he was hurt and not thinking straight. "You used my sigil, did you not?" the fallen uttered. "I did, but..." The voice fell silent and Barbatos could feel examining eyes on him. "You don't look. Make it quick, boy, so I can go back." Barbatos snapped, his orange-red eyes glowing to emphasize his need for rest. He certainly looked intimidating, the eyes coupled with the fiery hair and beard. The blood-stained clothes didn't make matters better, he concluded. "Please, oh great Barbatos, we are poor and starving. We need your help and protection to bring us through these dark times. As exchange, I offer my own eternal light to you and hell." "No! I will not deliver more souls to him than he already has. No, never! I refuse! But open the circle, boy. Please. Close the doorway to hell. Let me rest." Before a decision could be made, Barbatos felt himself topple over. When he came back to himself, Barbatos felt more at ease. He wore clean clothes and his upper back had been bandaged. Human medicine didn't help an angel in the same manner, didn't help a demon in the same manner, but Barbatos appreciated the effort. The occultist who had summoned him had also put a simple trapping spell on him. A pentagram inside 2 circles was drawn on the ground beneath him. The demon did not move, didn't feel the need to. His back still hurt, his grief still lingered. God had cast them down, but he hadn't taken their wings. Now he truly was a demon, having lost them. The crackling fire at the other end of the room caught the demon's attention. A man was sitting in front of a cauldron and stirred the cooking food inside. "Are you a druid?" The druids all vanished, leaving me behind, it seems. Turning around, the man showed a weary face marked by suffering, but also a certain pride. His black-brown hair was wavy and hung down to his shoulders. "I am a man who loves his people." Just like Barbatos, he wore the simple cotton clothes of his time. "You summoned me to help. I will help. I don't need anything in return. I am sick of his wicked ways." "I saw your wounds. What happened?" Barbatos took a moment to steady his mind and soul before answering. "My own king cut off my wings for my disobedience." The demon stared towards the ceiling in order to not lose ground. He heard the man coming closer. A minute later, the trapping spell was undone. "I am John." The man reached out with his hand to help Barbatos into a sitting position. "You trust me far too much, John. I might trick you. If you do, then I will bind you again." John went back to his cauldron and started filling some of the soup into a bowl. They spent the night talking. Barbatos needed to know where they were and what was happening. England was going through a harsh time, it seemed. The common folk was poor and the taxes high. John, an occultist of great power, was hiding from his own persecutors in Sherwood Forest under a cloaking spell. He was evading taxes and known as a thief. He was trying to relieve rich people of their gold so the poor could eat. But he was just one unarmed man, and the crown had many blades and dark dungeons. "The book says you are duke and served by 30 legions," John uttered when Barbatos had voiced his concern in the whole idea. "I thought my vassals abandoned me, some out of conflicting values, others out of fear of punishment from Lucifer." The demon changed his sitting pose when his back started hurting again. "I am alone in my quest to show compassion to your kind." The man's face grew grim and hopeless upon the revelation. "You need to learn how to fight, John. You can't be a mere magician, not in a world where people are starting to shy away from such powers more and more." "I have no weapons, no money, I can barely show my face." Barbatos showed a grin and got to his feet. "I shall take care of that. Sunrise is not far off, but I can make it work. You go to bed, John." Barbatos went to the door leading outside. "May I borrow your cloak?" "Yes, of course," came the stammered and slightly astonished answer. The human was not used to a demon asking. It amused Barbatos despite the dark situation they both had to deal with. The night was fresh and clear, and reviving to the demon. It had been long since the last summoning. He realized how much he had missed that plain. The trees, the birds. Nottingham itself was a bleak little town. Barbatos could sense the suffering of the people, and it sickened him. Despite his wounds, he traveled far, being faster than a human, to scout the area and find out how things stood. When the early birds rose, he asked them too, and they answered in low and mournful voices. Then he asked the dogs, the cats, and the cattle, and they all spoke of the injustice towards their masters and mistresses stricken by grief. The sheriff of Nottingham was a greedy man with great influence, not just in a little town, but over large parts of England. He was the perfect henchman for Prince John, a man just as despicable and self-centered. It was still dawn when Barbatos, like a shade, sneaked into the sheriff's cozy quarters. Past the guards, which looked like vultures, and into the weaponry he went. A sword for John he carried on his hip, and a bow and arrows on his back for himself. His back was burning by the time he entered the sheriff's bedroom, but he pushed on. He had seen the posters in the streets looking for the outlaw John Prowell. Still as silent as a cat, he crouched down next to the sheriff's ear, mumbling a few demonic words which would turn the man's attention somewhere else for the time being. Hunting outlaws is not necessary, my dear sheriff. There is a far greater threat coming for you. A demonic giggle escaped the demon when he sowed a bit of fear into those imposing words. Barbatos had already closed the sheriff's door when his back pained him again. The sudden sensation let him sink down for a moment. It was short and yet long enough for the guards to hear and to realize. An angel would have flown away. But Barbatos had lost that privilege, so he took an arrow as 4 men came at him ready to capture the invader. Swiftly you go as water does flow, he mumbled before releasing it. Cloaked in a red shimmer, the arrow went through all 4 men at different places of their bodies. Without waiting, the demon took off. Day had approached. The first people went about their business already. Horses were mounted to follow the cloaked thief, but Barbatos used his animal speech again, asking the creatures of the forest and the town to help him escape. A horse came to let him climb its back, and a throng of cows blocked the streets, so the sheriff's men had to ride around them. Nonetheless, his pursuers kept following, but when a pack of wolves started howling not far from the forest's entrance, the horses all shied away and refused to enter. Barbatos' own horse was reluctant, so he let the animal go back home to travel the rest of the way on foot. The demon made sure that he was alone before entering John's cloaked hut. There, finally safe, he sank down to rest once again. "Your back is healing well," John commented upon changing the bandages. Although he had thanked the demon for his efforts, the only interaction with the blade had been a suspicious glance, as if the steel was about to bite. "Does it hurt much?" "Getting better," the demon grunted. The physical wounds would heal, but he feared the one on his soul would stay forever. Barbatos took his bow and went to the door. "I will go and hunt. You need to be strong if you want to hold a sword." "I am strong. You are tall but haggard. Take your sword and train, or I will toss you into battle until you learn." John only gave the demon a blank look of despair, but Barbatos was stern. They wanted to rob the sheriff amid stars and moonlight, and for that the man needed to be able to fight. Until then they would focus on lesser-known people and carriages. When the demon returned with one of the king's deer, John was indeed practicing. Although he looked awkward, it was clear he had never held a weapon. Barbatos dropped the deer and went up to the man. "Come here. This is how you hold a sword. It's not made for 2 hands, it's for only 1, thus the other arm is free. Very skilled men can switch between left and right mid-battle or wield 2 blades. The demon showed the man a firm stance and waited for John to mimic him. This blade does not use blind strength, it is balanced. You can cause a deadly wound with only 1 strike, but you can also be fairly agile with it. John observed as the fallen angel showed him some simple maneuvers. Your hands need to get used to it. Take that tree over there and strike it. Don't stop. Even when your hands bleed, don't stop. The man did as commanded, whilst Barbatos gutted the deer and roasted it. They had widened the cloaking spell, for they were sure the sheriff was looking for them. A few days in which they laid low passed like this. John was making progress and Barbatos was healing. The demon brought scribbles and birds and berries for the men to eat. The birds told him of how things were, and they both concluded there was not much time left. The sheriff was starting to collect the taxes already, and only God could help those who didn't pay. It was the 5th morning when Barbatos saw a woman coming towards their hut. Confident that the cloaking spell was still in place, he did not bother to hide or call out. "Who are you?" Perplexed, the demon turned to the woman. She was beautiful, with long blonde hair. "You shouldn't be here," the demon growled, but before he could snatch her up and carry her a long way away, John called out from the now open door to his hut. "No, don't! She's a friend." Running up to her, he added, "Marian, what are you doing here?" "I came to warn you. The sheriff is furious. He is calling you a warlock and a traitor." Demon and man exchanged a look. Something had gone wrong. Somehow the sheriff had broken free from Barbatos' soothing words to leave John alone. He only didn't know how. When Marian gave the demon a suspicious glance, John acted at once. "Did you already meet my new companion? This is Robin." He clapped the demon on the shoulder, smiling nonchalantly. A little Robin had just been hopping through the grass far behind. "Robin?" The woman was not quite convinced. "Hood," John stated, hiding it very well that he had just made the name up. "Robin Hood, yes, that's him. Found him in the forest. He is a great thief, he can help." Abandoning her own doubts concerning the rumors about John, she went along with the explanation. Barbatos suddenly noticed something very distressing, and a look towards the man told him that John noticed as well. Their cloaking spell was falling apart. The sound of hounds and hoofs closed in on them. "We need to leave." The demon spoke, calling into the forest for help like before. But already King John's men came thundering through the trees and bushes. The blades were brandished, ready to take prisoners or, if necessary, end them at once. John was already holding his blade, taking a protective stance in front of Marian. Barbatos took his bow as well, but there were far too many of the enemy. Their only chance was to slip away. Chaos was unleashed when one of the king's men shot his arrow. Barbatos' own arrow killed the man, but too late. John had been hit in the thigh and was struggling to stand upright. A herd of deer suddenly broke through the trees as well, right into the group of horses who were falling into a panic themselves. 3 deers, 1 for each, stopped to let them mount before running on with the herd. Barbatos helped John, but when Marian's doe was shot, the man pushed the demon away. "Help her, Robin! Save her!" Already one of the king's men was taking hold of John, who was struggling to mount with his wound. There was no time. Everything happened at once. The demon couldn't protect both mortals at the same time. Sitting Marian on his own deer in front of him, Barbatos struggled to help his friend, but the animal already ran off, carrying them away at high speed with the last of the herd. A moment later they would have been captured too. Marian screamed for them to turn back to help John, but Barbatos was adamant. They had to escape first, and then they would come back to save the man. "You bring me back," the woman demanded when they had reached the other end of the forest. Barbatos was just dragging her along out of the forest into the next town. "I go back, you stay." The fallen angel was determined to turn back at once until he saw Marian falter. It was evening. They had ridden a long way and she was mortal. John had told him to save her. He couldn't leave her alone and tired on the street. Barbatos looked around. He had no money for lodgings, nor did he feel safe amongst unknown faces. Every one of them could be his enemy. He sighed. "Let's go back to the forest." "What? Why?" "I'll make a fire, you will sleep, and then tomorrow I will hide you well and venture back." Tolerating no objections, he took the woman by the hand. Marian, however, had different plans and slipped away before he could stop her. I'm not some treasure, he snapped at him, turning around and running into the village ahead. Marion! The demon hissed, but she was already gone. Barbatos grinned at his teeth in annoyance. He wasn't used to being disobeyed, especially when he knew what was right and what had to be done. And that woman was causing him to lose valuable time right at this moment. The demon, however, had been summoned by John, and he was bound to that mortal by his own loyalty. Other demons might have gone their own way now, free of control by magic and unbound, yet Barbatos was not interested in following Hell's philosophy, and in addition to that, he somehow had started to view that human as some sort of friend, a friend who had entrusted him with that woman. Despite the original plan, he went into town trying to find Marion. Night was falling, people were hurrying home or to the next pub. Certain people were coming out of their holes now too, looking for money, looking for prey. Barbatos went through the streets. He even asked people if they had seen someone fitting his description of Marion, but none of the peasants could really answer. Reasoning that she might have entered the pub for some warmth, the fallen angel looked in there. Music and drunk people greeted him inside, but no Marion he could find. Distraught by his own incompetence, he went outside. A sigh escaped him when he looked up to the silver stars. The night, together with the latest occurrences, made him feel heavy with grief again. If he only would have had his wings, he could have flown and found her. No! Get off me! Barbatos' ears hearkened to the desperate call, which sounded like it could have been her voice. Robin! Hearing his fake name made him turn at once to follow the now muffled sounds of struggle. He found a narrow alley where the back of a large man blocked his way. Marion! He called out, whereupon the man turned around. The stranger was holding the woman firmly in his arms as he mustered the demon. A grin showed dirty teeth, as if Barbatos was nothing to be reckoned with. The demon reacted by taking his bow and arrow with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, the man screamed in pain, an arrow in his leg. Marion, now free, ran to her savior at once. Barbatos grew stiff when he felt her embrace as she clung to him in fear and relief. He could feel her hands on his still not fully healed wounds beneath the fabric of his clothing. She must have felt him flinch when her hand went over an especially vulnerable part by accident, for she looked up at him. Barbatos only looked at the screaming man. He gently shook her off to approach the peasant. The pockets proved to be filled abundantly. I will kill you for this, the stranger only threatened through gritted teeth. Not today, the demon answered, giving the man a kick who tried to rise up and deal some injuries himself. Come, we should find some place to rest. Abandoning the idea of the woods, they instead found an inn. Marion was fast asleep when Barbatos left her in the early morning grey. He needed time to think. He could not take her with him. She had to stay somewhere safe. Strolling closer to the woods again, he saw a fox in the first light of dawn. Most people were still asleep, granting the animal an opportunity to widen its search for food. When the fox felt the demon's eyes on him, he stopped and looked up. Their gazes met, in which the animal uttered its short, ominous warning. Beware, beware, Barbatos. The sheriff is onto you. He knows more than you assume about your kind. What are you talking about? The demon asked, but the fox only sniffed the air and quickly vanished in the thicket again. There he is! I found him! Barbatos heard the voice of the stranger from the past night call out through the morning fog. He could see the man's figure as the mist was slowly lifting. One hand held the stick on which he was leaning, the other pointed at him with the index finger. Wanted by the king he is! The man kept barking, waking more and more people with his ruckus. At once the demon took off to disappear between the next houses. On his way back to the inn, he saw a poster with a message on it. An exact description of him and Marion, together with the fact that they were outlawed, was written on it. There also was quite a fortune to be made should someone deliver them. With a curse, he sprinted to the inn. into the room to drag the still sleeping Marion out of bed. Come, come! What? Where to? Somewhere, anywhere, we have to go. Outside, more and more people understood what the continuous screaming was all about. Even though he was rushing her as much as he could, people already expected them outside the inn. Barbatos put the woman behind him to shield her, for he could see a fair amount of weapons among the upset mob of townsfolk. Robin, she only whispered behind him. What are we going to do? Something you might find insane. But fear not, Marion, fear not. The demon scanned the people around them, thinking up what the best exit might be. He told me to keep you safe. I will keep you safe. Without a warning, Barbatos took her by the hand and rushed forward. The people around, just as surprised, took no action immediately, and some even stepped aside when he rushed towards them. Still, others, more quick-witted, put their weapons to use when the two made a run for it. The demon saw a man aiming his pitchfork at Barbatos' feet. His one free hand gripped the wooden staff and ripped the tool out of the mortal's hand. Armed with a somewhat sturdy means of defense, they kept running. The people followed. Barbatos parried and dodged more sharp tools meant for working, yet somewhere a sword still managed to wound him on his shoulder. They should have stayed in the forest, safe. Aiming to get back there, the demon saw a murder of crows nearby. They sat in the trees and looked for food near the pigs. He didn't hesitate and called for their help at once. The clever birds raised their heads and listened, then heeded the call. Putting Marion in front of him, the demon kept urging her along. Only seconds later he felt the piercing pain of an arrow in his lower back. Mortal weapons could not kill a demon. The cut on his shoulder had healed already, and yet the pain he still felt, and with the arrow stuck, the wound wouldn't heal. Already the crows gathered, shielding the fleeing friends and obscuring the people's view. Many mortals shrank away. Black birds were an omen of evil after all. Having entered the forest, Barbatos kept running until he finally fell to his knees from the pain. Marion, just as exhausted, panted next to him. Both listened, but no townspeople followed. An allied murder of crows had been too much for them. Robin, you're back. Before he could reply, he felt her fingers on his scarring injuries. Like a wounded animal, he whipped around to fix her with a burning stare. Marion only kept standing in place, fear and worry mingled in her eyes. Barbatos reached behind his back to pull out the arrow. There was a rip in his tunic, revealing the place where one of his wings had once been. Making an effort, he softened his gaze. What happened to you? Nothing. Come. Without another word, he turned around to keep on walking. He couldn't leave Marion by herself, he realized. There was no other choice but to take her with him as he would face the sheriff. A fire crackled softly in the dark forest. Barbatos had asked the glowworms to inform them if any danger would arrive. The insects of the forest were everywhere, and their means of communication worked like a forest fire. Broodingly he stared into the flames. His thoughts drifted back to hell. He was an outcast, now after his punishment. And what might be worse, it wouldn't be his last one. He couldn't stop helping mortals. He wouldn't. He felt absent-mindedly how Marion came closer to lean against him. After a while longer she looked up at him and spoke. You look so grim, Robin. I'm thinking. His mind didn't fully return until he felt her hand on his cheek. Confused, he looked at her. About John? You will save him. I know you will. It's not that. He took her by the wrist and with soft pressure forced it away from his face. The woman looked at him with her own stern confusion. So you would die for me, but you won't get close to me. Aren't you close already? With John. We are friends. Good friends, but friends. Barbatos looked closely whilst she spoke. He had an idea what she was starting to feel due to their forced time together. He understood. He made her feel safe, and she had seen that he too was vulnerable. But he would not give this human false hope. He knew what the Watchers had done out of malice, and even if he would harbor feelings for her if they gave something deeper a try, it was wrong. Angels were shepherds, demons were tempters. He was nothing, and nothing he should remain. He would not harm humanity, not by creating monsters, nor in any other way. Marion was human, and humans should fall in love with humans. All of a sudden, the air around vibrated with insectoid sounds, fluttering wings, chirping, everything. It was a warning, the demon realized, but too late. Something slammed into him too fast and too strong for being mortal. Another hand closed around Barbatos' neck and pushed him against the tree trunk. Marion suppressed a gasp of shock when the presence became visible. To her, it was a tall man with dark brown hair, wearing leather and cloak. Yet the fallen angel could see the demon in the man's eyes. How? Barbatos managed to croak. All he got was a smug, evil grin. Barbatos. Still trying to help humanity, I see. And you lost your wings too. Did it hurt? Not as much as you will hurt once I'm done with you. A punch lessened the grip enough for Barbatos to slip away. Who are you? He uttered with his sore throat. I am Sir Guy of Gisborne. That's not what I mean. It's all you will get. Done talking, Barbatos drew his bow and took aim. Human weapons cannot kill me. Gisborne only laughed. Quicker than a shadow, he went behind Marion, holding her in place. But it can kill her. Slowly, the fallen angel lowered his weapon. Let her go. No. Gisborne gave him another smirk. I'll wait for you in Nottingham's church. With that, Gisborne spread his wings, which turned from raven black to light grey towards the feathers' tips. Like the wind, he was gone with the woman in his grip. The church stood large and imposing in front of the demon. Ancient stones soaked in holy essence and purifying energy. Entering consecrated ground was always a risk to a fallen. One had to be especially strong or especially pure despite having fallen from grace if one wanted to keep his own strength in such a place. The devil was powerful enough, having been an archangel. And an angel, well, they certainly were pure enough. But a common demon like Barbatos would have his problems. His strength would dwindle, physically and mentally, the longer he stayed. It was why Gisborne had chosen a church. The only thing puzzling the fallen angel was the reason for doing it. The church would have the same effect on his enemy as it had on himself. If Barbatos was stronger than Gisborne the last time, he would be equally stronger now in that old building. Steadying himself, the demon went inside. What he saw had not been what he'd expected. Gisborne was there with Marion, but the sheriff was there as well, with 2 guards holding an exhausted John. Barbatos' summoner looked sickly pale and beaten. Gisborne informed me of everything. The sheriff spoke. He wore fine garments, his long black hair, which showed a few grey strands, hung loose, and his beard was neatly cut. He showed a cruel grin before elaborating more. Well, and your friend John, of course. Barbatos saw how his friend avoided his eyes in shame. The warning of the fox made sense now. The sheriff knew magic. Gisborne was his demon. I would like to employ you myself, the sheriff continued. Enter my service and whatever you want shall be yours, even your friend's life. I would rather die right now than betray the trust they put in me, Barbatos answered without really thinking. Pledging himself to a man like the sheriff would have great consequences for the people John wanted to help. With the motion of their master's hand, the guards acted. One took John's right hand, the other drew his own sword. A scream followed when it was severed from the wrist. Blood covered the church's altar. The sheriff had apparently no problem with defiling a holy place. The demon felt fear fester in his guts. John would bleed to death with such a wound. Even with medical help, he would probably die. Barbatos would have liked to just mow them down, all of them. The consecrated atmosphere, however, was lying on him like heavy iron from hell. The cleansing pressure pushed him to the ground, started to make his head loopy. He took a step forward, yet his enemies reacted at once. "Stay, demon!" the sheriff called, motioning at Marion. "I will not stop just because she is a woman. Let me heal them. Let's make a deal." Barbatos' eyes locked with the ones of the sheriff. The demon was beaten, and they both knew it. "Let them go, unharmed, and I will give you—" He hesitated. "I will give you free reign over me." A broad smile marked the sheriff's face. John was still panting and groaning in pain when the demon approached. Reattaching and healing the severed hand was nothing for the demon. He knew well how to heal, human, demon, or animal. John and Marion were indeed free to leave the church, whereas Barbatos stayed behind with his new master. He could have run, but it would only worsen matters more. Certain of his victory, the sheriff gave the demon quarters, clothing, and a title. Just like Gisborne, Barbatos was sent to assassinate people, punish peasants, or claim taxes. Once again, Barbatos rebelled by disobeying. Whenever Gisborne was away and couldn't have an eye on his fellow fallen angel, the demon went into the sheriff's treasury. Instead of claiming taxes, he gave money. Instead of punishing, he healed ailments, and instead of killing rivals, he sent an anonymous letter of warning. It was one night when he was relieving the sheriff of some more gold that Gisborne turned up behind Barbatos. The other demons seemed envious to not be the only supernatural follower of the sheriff any longer. Not only did he dislike the demon's character, he hated the fact of having a potential rival. Gisborne showed a broad grin. He was overjoyed by the unforeseen opportunity. "Oh, if I wasn't a demon, I would praise the Lord right now. But I guess I can't praise Lucifer." A punch followed which caused Barbatos to lose the gold he was holding. Dozens of coins fell to the ground where they glittered and rolled. The fallen angels soon returned the punch, and a fight ensued in which they both beat each other bloody. Walls cracked and chests shattered when the two demons fought with their inhuman strength. The guards, alerted by the noise, came running. Gisborne was lying on the ground beneath the tip of his own demonic sword. Barbatos was just about to kill the other fallen angel, even if he was frozen to the spot as he struggled to do so. "Stop!" The sheriff, in his sleeping clothes and hair tousled from sleep, stumbled into the dungeon where his treasure lay secured. Barbatos could see from the way the man's eyes scanned the room that he was making sense of what happened very quickly. Of course he did. Sooner or later he had to notice his still-alive rivals and the healthier peasants. "You!" he fixed Barbatos with an angry stare. "Me." The demon answered as if it was a confession. "Why?" he thundered like a little boy. "Why won't you obey? I told you! I gave you free reign over me." Barbatos interrupted the mortal in an icy manner of defiance. "Not my loyalty. My will is my own." The sheriff was seething with wrath. "Take him away! Put him in chains!" Again, Barbatos did not resist. He didn't know if the sheriff would hunt or even kill John if the demon's usefulness turned out to be completely lost to him. 5 days and 5 nights the demon was in a dark, damp cell. After that short time of isolation, the sheriff came down to try and talk to him. Barbatos refused to be part of the man's cruelty, whereupon the sheriff ordered his subordinates to torture the demon. Gisborne certainly had educated his master about the immortality of his kind. Barbatos knew from the way he was carelessly treated, as if the mortals tried to find out how far he could go without dying. Stubbornly, the demon endured. Sometimes Gisborne himself came down to spend some time with his fellow fallen angel. It felt like eternity had passed when Barbatos was summoned out of the dungeon and to the sheriff. I see from your posture that you still won't surrender." A steadfast stare was all the sheriff got for an answer. The man in front of him sighed with faked helplessness. "Gisborne said I should send you back to hell." The sheriff circled the demon whilst talking. He kept his distance as if he was afraid Barbatos might attack. Gisborne was close by, leaning against a wall. "He told me your little flaws in character when it comes to being a demon." Barbatos could hear people outside. There must have been a crowd gathering. Would the sheriff execute him to see if that would solve the problem? Why not? Why not just send the demon back? "But I think I would rather have it you go back on your own." With a wave of his hand, he ordered Gisborne to him. The demon took Barbatos by the shoulder to lead him outside onto the small balcony. The blood in the demon's veins froze when he saw two nooses waiting for the victims on the scaffold. The sheriff waved, but there wasn't much excitement. Some people were shocked, some eager for the spectacle, and some seemed content with the fact that John and Marion were going to die. "You want another pact?" "No." The sheriff turned around and leaned against the balcony's railing. "You would just find another loophole." The demon's heart sank at the revelation. He had wanted to be a healer, a helper, a good spirit despite his fall, but he had failed. His friend would die. The man who had summoned him out of hell would die. It's all or nothing then. There was a difference between not being able to kill and not wanting to kill. It seemed Gisborne as well as the sheriff had mistaken Barbatos' reluctance for weakness. The other demon howled when Barbatos drove his elbow into his enemy's face. "Do you ever stop?" Gisborne muttered, holding his nose. Barbatos didn't give him time to gather his wits before kicking him in the stomach. Gisborne halfway flew against the railing, causing it to crack. "Kill them!" the sheriff commanded the hangman below. Guards came to stop the fallen angel, but Barbatos dealt with them quickly. A quick glance informed the demon of his friends already standing in place, the noose around their necks. The sudden sensation of a hand on his ankle let him look down. Gisborne had dragged himself towards the demon for a new attempt to kill his enemy. Barbatos shook him off and dragged him into a standing position. "Barbatos," the other demon growled, taking his sword. Barbatos, however, gripped his enemy's hand firmly. "You knew I was stronger. It's why you never wanted to fight me one-on-one." The fallen angel spoke slowly, soothingly almost, whilst he guided Gisborne's hand, holding the blade until the steel pointed at the demon's chest. Gisborne grunted with effort when he tried to overpower Barbatos. A silent struggle ensued, yet it ended when Barbatos pushed a sword into his fellow demon's heart with one strong movement. None of them spoke. Only the groans of a dying man trying to fight death sounded. The sheriff still leaned against the railing, but his eyes showed pure fear, like a rabbit in front of a serpent. "You're not an occultist." Barbatos approached the mortal. "That demon was bound to your line, wasn't he?" "Great-grandfather," the man stuttered. "I see." The demon answered in a bored manner. With one push, the sheriff toppled over the ceiling. A sickening thud sounded, announcing his demise far below. At the same time as the sheriff was pushed over, though, the trapdoor beneath the feet of the two condemned fell away. Barbatos wanted to take his bow, remembering it was gone. Without thinking, he jumped from the balcony, landing on his feet. Sprinting towards the two who struggled to breathe, he cut the rope with the demonic blade. The hangman tried to interrupt him, but Barbatos only pointed the bloody blade at him. Everyone was silent, looking at the three people on the scaffold. "You don't touch them," he told the hangman, and then louder he announced to everyone, "No one touches them!" When people started praising him, the fallen angel grew somewhat relaxed. He looked behind to see Marion in John's arms, looking for safety. The man himself only smiled at the demon. "You are a hero, Robin Hood, the shadowy menace of the High People." Robin Hood was sitting on a wagon which was pulled by a horse. The floppy hat concealed his features a fair deal, as did the cloak. Behind him, inside the wagon, lay John and Marian. The crown was after them. Traitors, murderers, thieves. A mother with her boy sat on the roadside. Robin knew they were beggars. Their clothes were full of holes, the bodies thin. None of them spoke when the wagon rolled closer and then stopped. They both stared at the ground. Their empty bowls spoke for themselves. Without a word, Robin dropped a handful of gold into the mother's bowl, and a single gold coin into the boy's. As if the sound was life-inducing, the mother started crying, praising the Lord and the compassionate stranger on the wagon. "There's always mercy, little one." Robin raised his head, enough for the boy to see part of the face with the fiery red beard, and smiled. "Ma! Ma, look, it's Robin Hood!" When the boy realized, the demon gave a wink and went back to his poor posture, which made him look like a pitiful drunk. With a whispered word, he told the animal in front of him to start walking again. After a few yards, John arose from his half-slumber. Next to him, Marian was still sleeping. "Little one? You mortals are little to me. You are young and foolish and daft, but you're also young and thus full of wonder and excitement. Little people. Little people. Little John." Robin smiled over his shoulder at his human master. John only made a face. He didn't like to be called little. "I like it." "What? Little John?" "I come from a long line of powerful occultists, druids even. I am not Little John, Little John." The demon started singing with his gruff voice. "Tell me, where do you come from? The druids, they are dead and gone, and now you are the only one." The verses went on for a while as the wagon rolled on. Always one step ahead of the crown. Always one moment quicker than injustice. "Little John, Little John, come with me, come along. In the ways of magic you are strong, and you use it to make right what's wrong.